Your brain is addicted to motivation, and here's why that's destroying you. I know that's a big claim, but stay with me for the next 10 minutes because what I'm about to show you isn't a productivity hack or a mindset trick. It's neuroscience. And once you understand what's actually happening inside your brain, every time you wait to feel motivated, you will never operate the same way again. And here's the uncomfortable truth that most people never hear. Motivation is not your ally. It is your brain's most sophisticated trap. And right now, it is quietly dismantling your discipline, your consistency, and your potential. And I'm very sure most of you are a victim of this saying, I will start when I feel ready. If that stings a little, that's good. It should, because the people around you who are actually building result, stacking wins and showing up every single day, they figured this out a long time ago. And in this video, you are about to do the same. All right, I've spent years studying the brain science behind human performance, self-discipline, and what I call mental toughness, which is the ability to act without needing to feel like it, okay? In fact, I wrote about it extensively in my book, Mental Toughness, Unbreakable Mind. Okay, I'll link it in the description below, which came out of years of, research into why some people seem wired for consistency, while others, keep cycling through bursts of motivation followed by weeks of nothing. And what I found was shocking. The gap between high performance and everyone else has almost nothing to do with talent or willpower or even intelligence. But it comes down to one thing: whether your behavior is driven by your brain's motivation system or by something far more powerful. So let's get into the neuroscience, because you need to understand what's actually, happening inside your brain before you can change it. Here's what no one tells you about motivation. Motivation is a feeling, and feelings are produced by neurochemicals, specifically dopamine. Now, you've probably heard of dopamine called the feel-good chemical, but that's not quite right. Dopamine isn't really about pleasure. Dopamine is about anticipation. It is the chemical that your brain releases when it expects a reward. And here's where the trap begins. When you watch a motivational video, you listen to a hyper playlist, or read about someone else's transformation story, your brain gets a hit of dopamine. It anticipates the reward of becoming that version of you. And for a brief window, maybe for an hour or maybe a day, you feel good, you feel unstoppable, right? You write down your goals, you make plans, you tell yourself that this is the right time, this time is going to be different. But then something happens. The dopamine fades away, the feeling disappears, and suddenly the gym feels far away from you. The project that you wrote down feels hard to complete. The diet that you started feels, strict. And you're back to square zero. This is what I call the motivation loop. And your brain has been running it on repeat for years. And here's the devastating part. Every time you act only when you are motivated and stop when the feeling fades, you are reinforcing a neural pathway. You are literally training your brain to require a motivational trigger before taking action. Over time, the threshold gets higher. You need more stimulation to get the same dopamine response, which is more YouTube videos, more podcasts, more hype, more this and that. You become, in the truest neurological sense, addicted to motivation and completely dependent on a feeling that was never designed to be consistent. Motivation wasn't built for modern goal settings. It was built for survival, to help early humans chase prey or flee predators. It is a short, sharp spike of neurochemical energy, not a sustainable operating system. And yet, we've built our entire approach to success around it. No wonder why most people quit. So, if motivation is the trap, what's the alternative? Discipline, but not the version you've been sold. When most people hear discipline, they think about difficult things. They think about forcing themselves through pain or white-knuckling your way through results. That's not discipline. That's just willpower. And willpower is a finite resource. Research out of multiple universities has consistently shown that willpower depletes throughout the day as your prefrontal cortex, which is the brain's decision-making center, gets tired, right? Real discipline is completely different. And here's what the neuroscience shows us. When you perform a behavior consistently, not when you feel like it, but on a fixed schedule regardless of how you feel, your brain starts automating that behavior. It's literally beginning to shift the task from your prefrontal cortex, which require, conscious effort and energy, to the basal ganglia, which is the brain's habit center. The basal ganglia doesn't care how you feel. It doesn't need dopamine to get started. It operates on pattern recognition and repetition. Once a behavior is embedded there, it becomes close to effortless. This is the neuroscience of discipline. You are not fighting your feelings. You are bypassing them entirely. Mentally tough people, the ones who train every day, the ones who build business, the ones who write books, the ones who stay consistent, they are not motivated more than you. They have simply repeated behavior long enough that those behaviors no longer require emotional buy-in to execute. Think about brushing your teeth. You don't wait until you feel motivated to brush. You don't hype yourself up. You just do it because it's been automated. That's exactly what high performers have done with their most important daily behaviors. Now, the question is, how do you get there? Great question. Now, there are 3 brain-based principles that I've seen, change everything for people who actually want to build real, lasting discipline. Not hacks, not shortcuts, but principles rooted in how your brain actually works. Principle 1, design your worst day, not your best. Most people design their routines when they are motivated. They plan to wake up 5 a.m., they train for an hour, they journal, they meditate, they eat perfectly, because in that motivated state, it feels achievable. But your system has to survive your worst days. Your system has to survive your worst Monday or your worst Tuesday. Days when you feel like you slept badly, days when you were stressed, and days when everything feels hard, because those days are coming regardless. And one of those days, your motivation will be 0. The fix is radically simple. Strip your non-negotiable down to the smallest possible version. Don't plan to run 5 miles or 5 kilometers. Instead, plan to put on your running shoes first and step outside. Don't plan to write 2,000 words. Instead, plan to open up your document first and write at least 1 sentence. I know the bar is very low, but the bar is so low that even on your worst days, you can still clear it. And here's the neuroscience behind why this works. It's called behavioral activation. Starting a behavior, even in the smallest form, triggers a cascade of neural signals that makes, continuing far more easier than starting. Your brain's inertial principle works both ways. Object at rest stays at rest. Object in motion stays in motion. That's the principle. Okay, principle number 2. Sever the emotional getting system. This one is critical. You have to stop making your action conditional on your feelings. Stop saying, I will go when I feel like it. Instead, replace it with a time-based trigger. For example, at 6 a.m., I train. That's it. Not when I feel good or when I slept good, but 6 a.m., time-based. Implementation intention. Plans that tie behavior to a specific time or cue rather than an emotional state have been shown in psychological research to drastically increase follow-through behavior. You are completely removing the decision from the equation entirely. No decision, no reliance on motivation. Principle 3, reward the showing up, not just the result. Here is the smart way to use dopamine rather than being used by it. When you show up and do the behavior regardless of how you feel, celebrate it. A brief moment of self-acknowledgement activates a small dopamine response that gets associated with the act of showing up, not just with the outcome. Over time, you train your brain to feel good about consistency itself. You are literally rewiring your reward circuitry to support discipline rather than undermining it. So, I want to talk about something that rarely gets addressed in this kind of conversation, and it's this. The reason why most people stuck in a motivation loop isn't a lack of knowledge. You probably already knew on some level that motivation was unreliable. The real reason is identity. If you identify as someone who needs to feel motivated before you act, then every time you take action without feeling good, it will feel unnatural, it will feel forced, it will feel uncomfortable, and your brain, which is wired to protect your existing identity, will push back. Mentally tough people don't just have better systems, they have a different self-concept. They identify as people who act regardless of how they feel, not because they are superhumans, but because they have made a decision, consciously or not, about who they are. And decisions about identity become self-fulfilling neural programmings. So here's a question I want to leave you with. Who are you when the motivation is gone? Because that's who you actually are. That's the version of you that determines your results. And the moment you decide that version of you shows up anyway, not because it feels good, but because that's just what you have to do, everything changes. That's the mindset shift I've seen transformed people from chronic starter into consistent builders. Not a better, morning routine, not a more aesthetic journal. A new answer to the question, who shows up when I don't feel like it? The answer has to be me. Every time. No exception. So let me bring it all together. Your brain is wired to chase motivation because motivation feels like progress. But motivation is a neurochemical spike designed for survival, not for long-term building. Every time you act only when you feel it and stop when you don't, you are training your brain to need that spike more and more and more. Discipline is the opposite. It's the process of automating behavior so deeply into your neural wiring that how you feel becomes irrelevant. That's not willpower. That's neuroscience working for you instead of against you. And you build that by designing system for your worst days, removing emotional conditions from your actions, and rewarding consistency over outcome. And most importantly, by deciding who you are when no one is watching and when nothing feels good. That's the decision. That decision is available to you right now. Today, not tomorrow, not when you feel ready, but now. If this video gave you something real, please do share it with someone who's stuck in a motivation loop because they need to hear this. And if you want to get deeper into the brain science of mental toughness, into building the kind of unbreakable operating system that doesn't depend on how you feel, please go check out my book on Amazon. And if you are in South Africa, you can get it on Take a Lot. It's available right there. It's a pretty easy read, very engaging, so not so much of bombarding information. It's pretty easy. I promise you, you'll get something out of it. And if you have any question, please do drop it in the comment section, or if you just have any kind of insight to share with everybody, please do so, because I do read each and every comment and I'm ready to interact with you and respond each and every comment. So for today, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.